Basically, as the term itself is indicating, this subject is about developing the organization. And luckily, it has a nice link with what we did together in the very first term. So, HRD, when we were talking about, HRD was all about individual, how to increase the competence of an individual. And the idea was in HRD, the idea is, I should say, that once the capabilities of people improves, whether it is knowledge or skills or attitudes, it is likely that when a lot of people get trained and developed, those extra competencies will only help in the organization to go forward. And that is how this idea of organization development comes in. So HRD focuses on individual development of employees, but the collective development of those people should lead to the organization to develop. That is the basic link between these two concepts. So that is the first premise. Now, when we talk of organization development, what comes to our mind is, if you look at this slide, there are two in red, and you know my habit. When there is a red in the content of the slide, headings are always red for me. Those are the key words that you have to definitely focus on. So this is the basic definition, very simplistic definition of OD, as is typical in social sciences, and management is primarily a social science, though it has the technical aspects also. So here there cannot be one single definition of any concept. Every author will give a definition that, according to that author's research, comes out prominently. So I have given you here not a standard definition to begin with, a very simplistic definition. It is the introduction and implementation of two things: planned and systemic changes. Now, we need to differentiate between the words systematic and systemic. How I would put it is, when you bring about systematic changes, automatically that will lead to systemic changes. Whatever is our system as of now, or systems as of now, if we bring about changes in a planned and systematic manner, obviously our systems are going to change. So this is the basic concept. Now the question is, as you know, this paper is titled Organization Development and Change Management. So in the later part of this paper, you will see that when you talk of change management, I will not get into the details as of now, but can any development happen without change is the question. For any development to happen, change is a must. When a little child goes to school at the age of 3 in a nursery or kindergarten, what is happening? Why is the child developing? Because a change is happening. So similarly, when you talk of an organization, developing an organization automatically means you have to bring about changes. Now, you have to also differentiate between these two terms. When I use the word change, change can be positive change, change can be negative change. Change is that way a neutral term. But when you typically use the word development, it is used in the positive sense. So when we talk of organization development, which will be brought about by certain changes, we are essentially saying that those changes have to be positive changes. And why systematic? Because if you do not bring about systematic changes, there is every possibility that the change can go in a negative direction also. So there are certain things in life which are going to change and you have no control on. For example, if our hair grows, our height grows till a certain this thing, these are not in our control. But what do? In order to look better, we will groom our hair in a certain way so that so that is a change which is a voluntary change we are bringing about. So in the organizational context also, you have to remember that when you want the organization to develop, obviously changes have to be brought in. And if the changes are not planned and systematic, then the systemic changes, the systems that you want to change, are unlikely to happen. That is why the significance of these words, planning and systemic changes, is what you want. And that can happen when you bring about systematic changes. Right? I hope it makes sense to you. So now in this para, I bring in the word systematic. It is a systematic process for applying behavioral science principles and practices in organizations to increase individual and organizational effectiveness. The individual part of the effectiveness is primarily taken care of through HRD, and it relates to the organizational effectiveness because collectively we are moving forward. In fact, if you look at the history of some of the companies that have vanished in the last few years, they were prominent names, but you do not find them today. I would say that they were not able to introduce or understand the relevance of OD properly. And because they were unable to bring about the changes that were needed, they just vanished. That is how important OD is. Kodak, for instance, they were pioneers in photography. You just had to mention photography and the name Kodak came to your mind. But today, they are nowhere, right? In India, for instance, as a kid, you might have seen, or I don't know, probably not, we had Ambassador and Fiat. And Ambassador was owned by Birlas. What happened? Are Birlas anymore into car production? So they could not renew their organization. In fact, if you look at your curriculum, there is a concept of self-renewal of organizations. So OD is a concept which constantly keeps you in sync with the current realities of business. What are those changes that are needed to be brought in? And if you do not bring in those changes, you have a problem in hand. You might just survive for a few years and then you will die. So therefore, the organization has to be sensitive to this. So moving on, please feel free to ask a question or put in a yes or a no if there is no, particularly if you do not understand something. So in OD, the focus is organizations and making them function better. This is what I was trying to explain. If something has become outdated, then if you take our generation, for instance, in our entire school and college, we had not even heard about computers, right? It was in my first job in DCM that I was introduced to computers for the first time. So if we had not learned computers, and in fact, we had a very interesting, our orientation program used to be a fairly longish one, where we all management trainees were supposed to go to every department and meet with their heads. So we had a final kind of a review meeting with the chief of the unit. So I distinctly remember Mr. J.P. Kapoor used to be the chief of the unit. So he told us, all you youngsters, if you do not learn computers, you will all become illiterates, irrespective of whether you are IITians or IIMs or whatever. So that is the kind of focus, how to make organizations function better. If there is a need for replacing complete manual operations by computers, by robotics, and today, of course, AI and ML is coming in a big way, that is what we have to do for the organization to survive first and then thrive. That is, improve. Profits should grow, market share should grow, right? The corporate image of the organization should become better and better. That is the focus of OD. So the second sentence, as you can see, essentially it is about acting or action. Acting might sound like, not unreal, but action is what is required. Achieving results as a consequence of planned activities. That is the simple thing, right? So what is our target? The human and social processes. And please remember, you can buy a 5 crore rupee car, but if you give it to a driver who is not used to that, who is not trained for that, that 5 crore rupee car can become a bundle of iron in a matter of seconds. So any technological update must be accompanied by a human and a social process, the human side of the organization. Never forget that an organization is created by a human being or a set of human beings. The employees are human beings, the customers are human beings. So everything that we do is about human side of organizations. Technology is only a servant for us. That is the way it should be looked at. So the setting is real organizations in the real world. Now, why do we say that? Because till yesterday, if technology X was perfectly fine, our company was doing well. But in today's business scenario, if it is technology has changed, then we need to work on it. We have to again bring in a change. If you remember, in the first term, we had talked of a term called VUCA, VUCA, which is an acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. All these factors play a role, and we have to constantly update. And OD is that renewal process for every organization to get in. I am purposely going very, very slow right here because it is the first class, plus the concept has to be very clear. Rest of the things, you are all very sincere and intelligent people, you will be able to take on. As is my habit, I'll give you a lot of slides. So the content is not as important as understanding the concept right now. So as you can see here, major work started in OD, though it has its roots in the 40s. But those were, some psychologists, some sociologists, some management professionals. They were experimenting with a lot of things. And we will come to those techniques in subsequent topics. Broadly, the concept of OD developed around the late 50s and early 60s. Brought into its fold the small experimentations that had happened. Some had succeeded, some had not succeeded, and all those became techniques of OD, that we will see in the subsequent slides. So insights from group dynamics. Now, group dynamics is a subject which psychologists, sociologists are constantly working on. What happens when an individual becomes a part of the group? What happens when two batchmates extremely close friends, both engineers or MBAs from the same B schools or engineering colleges, join an organization, but one is placed in sales and the other is in production. So they might be such great friends that they share a flat. But when it comes to a fight between sales and production, the friend who is in production will support the production department and the friend who is in sales will support the sales department. So what happened to these two individuals? Group dynamics. You are identified with the production team and your friend is identified with the sales team. And if there is a clash, in that you support them. It's exactly like when Delhi plays Mumbai, then Rohit Sharma wants Virat Kohli's wicket to fall at the earliest. And similarly, Virat Kohli also wants Rohit Sharma's wicket to fall at the earliest. But when they are playing the World Cup as India, is that the kind of mindset that will work? So we need to understand this aspect, group dynamics and planned change, which we started with. How group dynamics will affect planned change. Another concept, I am briefly referring to it here because that kind of forms the basis. It is called force field analysis. Probably in business strategy also and HRD, I did make a mention of it. I can't recall. Now see, what happens is you are all working people. You know that even if an idea is brilliant, it is not going to make that impact on everybody. Why? Because some people will not be able to understand the idea. Some people will have a selfish interest that this idea goes against their personal interest. And that is why they will oppose the idea. Some will think, oh, if we accept this idea, we will have to work more. So those kind of thought processes are always there. This is group dynamics. So if I belong to a certain political party, I will always toe the party line, even if I know personally that that is not right. So a sensible manager, when he or she wants to bring about a change, just does not jump into it because the idea is good. Beyond the idea, they try to analyze that if I try to implement this idea, what all support I will be getting from the higher management, from my colleagues, from my juniors, and at the same time, who are the kind of people who will oppose the idea. And they will make a rough calculation that at this point in time, are the ideas which are in my favor or rather in favor of the decision, are they more or are the restraining forces more? So this is a very practical way of looking at it, that unless you have been able to create a situation where the facilitating forces, supporting forces are more than the restraining forces, your idea will not go through. So before you implement that idea, make an assessment and try to win over people so that they support your idea, and then only you will be able to implement it properly. Remember, the entire implementation you cannot do. You have to depend on others to implement, right? So am I making sense? So because, as I said, any change, even technical change, after all, who decides which technology to bring in? Isn't it a human being who decides? Who opposes? Again, a human being. Who approves? Your boss or whoever, or the top management of the company? Again, a human being. So therefore, OD specialists rely on behavioral science techniques. They get questionnaire surveys. Many of you must be familiar in your organizations about the employee satisfaction surveys, employee engagement surveys, and all of that. And sometimes, many of you are from HR. HR has that informal responsibility of deriving what is happening in the organization from the informal chit chats that you happen. In fact, in management, some of you may be familiar with this term. There's a term called MBWA, management by wandering around or walking around. So as you go through the office, factory, or offices, some little discussion with somebody, even as part of a hello, hi, oh, how are you doing? Some employee may come up and say, this is not happening correctly or whatever. So that's an input to you. We have to be always aware that such informal inputs are crucial for you to gauge the company's health. So questionnaire surveys, particularly if they are anonymous, where you are not asking for the name and this and that, then you are likely to get a genuine, honest feedback as to what is the health of the company like. What is the level of satisfaction of people? What do they want the organization to do? Those are the kind of things that come out from questionnaire surveys. And interviews, as I said, interviews could be formal interviews, they could be group discussions, they could be individual interviews, they could be informal chit chats. We used to follow, because both the companies that I worked with, we had huge factories, DCM and Escorts. So it was the job of every HR guy to walk through the factory at least once every alternate day or something, and just informally chit chat with some people. And that is how we could get what is a kind of feel of the organization and its employees, right? So when you have to introduce the changes that you are planning, then obviously members of the organization, which means employees, sometimes even your vendors and your customers, even they have a role to play in your organization development. To give you an example, we were doing some consulting work with Career Aircon, the AC people, many years back. And that is the time when LG and Samsung came in as major competitors, and they were offering at a much lower price. So Career Aircon wanted to see how they can compete. So one of the things they did was they invited all their vendors, okay, to a meeting, and in that they opened out an AC where all the different components were put, and the vendors who were supplying those components were all there. So they openly and frankly said that, you see, with LG and Samsung coming in, we have to do something about our pricing. So please tell us, what all can you do? What kind of reduction in prices can you give? What kind of improvement of quality can you give? So your OD process is being facilitated by vendors. Similarly, we checked out with customers, and we got some very interesting feedback from the customers, where normally you think when somebody buys an AC, what are the things you are concerned about? You are concerned about, you are typically concerned about the cooling, electricity consumption, the price, general looks of the thing, it will be on your wall in the room, and things like that. But when we talked to some of the customers, we found that they were all quite happy with all this. They had no complaints. But one guy said that, see, I have a very tiring job. I'm in event management. So every day, virtually 12 or 1, I return home. Morning again, I have to get up at 6. So I want, the my sleep to be absolutely comfortable. So I want my AC to be on an hour or half an hour before I reach home so that I get a cool room. Now that means what is he asking for? He's asking for a timer, which was not a feature of the AC. So you get a feedback and you accordingly develop the technology, accordingly train your people to introduce a timer in your AC or a remote in your AC. So these are things which can come from people who are not directly part of the organization. So OD is a very, very comprehensive process where you don't have any restriction of seeking ideas. Now the question comes, what is the role of an OD consultant? And typically the debate is around, do we have somebody, senior person from the organization itself, or do we go to an outside person? This is a debate that always happens. Now there are pluses and minuses on both sides. In favor of the internal OD consultant, you have the argument that if somebody is a vice president of the company and has been with the company for 10, 20 years, he or she has a good grasp of how the organization has progressed, what are its strengths, what are its limitations, and therefore he or she would be in a much better position to understand what needs to be done. But then the counter argument is that if this person is given charge of the OD assignment, maybe which will last 2 years or something, it will, while he or she will have good internal knowledge, but once he or she knows that I have to take on again a role of an operations head, whether marketing or finance or HR or whatever, so can I openly point out the flaws in the department, and tomorrow when I go back to my original position, there is a problem because I have spoiled relations. So he or she may hold back. Second thing is, yes, they have a good knowledge of the organization, but because the person has been there in this organization, he or she does not have that good an idea of what is happening outside in similar organizations. And that is where it swings in favor of the outside OD consultant. Why? Because the outside OD consultant is a person who has handled these kind of assignments with other organizations and gained expertise which is not available in this. The simple example is, each one of us, nobody can know our bodies better than we ourselves do. But then how is it that, whenever we have a problem in the stomach or the head, we go to a doctor? And sometimes we are meeting the doctor for the first time. So how is it that a complete stranger will be able to identify what is causing my headache and I am unable to? Because that person has a specialization and he or she has handled 3,000 such situations. So that expertise is brought in. So an outside OD consultant, the first advantage is that it is their profession exclusively and they bring that extra knowledge and awareness into the current organization that we are talking about. The second reason why an outside consultant is preferred is because this particular person or a team that comes in does not have any politics with the people who are the heads of the departments. Outside consultant is only interested in his or her fee and some good work happens so that the reputation travels that yes, this person or this group of persons are good in organizational development work. Sorry, somebody is asking a question, it seems. Sorry. So this is the reason why outside OD consultants are typically brought in rather than rather than this work being handled by. Yeah, Harpreet, you have a question, right?
Sorry, sir. It was by accident. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
Okay, no issue, no issue, no issue. I hope everything is moving smoothly because first time we are interacting
Ye-
on this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. Gradually, I will have to increase my speed. I'm just getting, you all into the thing. Okay. So therefore, the outside OD consultants are preferred, and they normally redesign the organization so that the work groups can coordinate their efforts more effectively. It's the let us go back to the same problem. Typically, anybody who has worked in manufacturing knows sales and production keep on having their tips. The salespeople will always say, you produce. Production people will always say, Arey, you don't know how to sell, and that is why you are making these excuses. So that is a typical fight which goes on. So an outside person, it's like a judge because the OD consultant has to carry everybody along. It is not that he has to just pass a judgment. He has to see to it that the two parties are able to work together even after the OD assignment is over, right? Okay. So that brings us to some changes in the behavior processes, the way we conduct our meetings, the way we point out the flaws in the other department. Those are also considerations as to how we need to go about improving the organization, right? The end aim is, of course, overall productivity of the organization must increase. Now, we must remember, and there are many OD interventions which fail for the simple reason that people are unable to understand that human behavioral changes cannot happen overnight. I mentioned that just because you bring a good idea does not mean it will immediately be accepted. There are so many different ideas which die, wonderful ideas, but they die because of lack of acceptance. So therefore, the OD consultant is very well aware, and he or she must caution the organization, the management of the organization, that unless they are prepared for a long-term process changes, don't expect overnight results. A 5-year-old child, if has to develop, cannot suddenly be given the brain of a 15-year-old child. We have to follow the process, and it takes time. So it is better not to start with an OD process unless you are willing to give it the time it needs. That is the essence of the second para here. Now we come to the simple 3 steps, and as we go along in this subject, we will elaborate on this. The first step in OD, and here please keep the doctor-patient model in mind. And subsequently, I'll also tell you why the doctor-patient model may not be exactly applicable in organizations. But right now, focus on the doctor-patient model. What happens? A patient realizes that something is wrong. I'm getting fever, I'm having headache, some problem. So that acceptance then takes the patient to a doctor who he or she thinks is suitable for this ailment. Typically, we all have, some family doctor, sorry, for the usual, things like malaria or jaundice or typhoid or whatever. So we consult our doctor and tell him or her that this is the problem I am having, these are the symptoms. Now what does the doctor do? The doctor diagnoses. That is the first step. Similarly, in OD, the OD consultant has to diagnose what the problem is. Then what happens? Once, if the doctor is convinced that this is the thing, this is the disease, then he or she immediately prescribes medicines. But before that, if it is not sure why the fever is happening, it could be malaria or typhoid, jaundice, whatever, then the patient is sent for a blood test. So similarly, an OD consultant may do some little research in terms of questionnaires or whatever, to diagnose what the problem is. Because in the case of a patient and doctor, there is one single patient with certain symptoms. But in an organization, the problem is not of one person, it is of the entire organization. And if you take an organization like the railways, they have probably 15 lakh employees or something. So therefore, no problem in the railway ministry would be that of one person. So it becomes very, very complicated. So the OD consultant has to diagnose whatever is needed for that diagnosis. He or she will have to go through that. But just as in the case of doctor-patient relationship, it is the best doctor in the world also you can't just go to a best doctor in the world and say, I am not well, please cure me. The doctor is going to ask you for the symptoms. Then will apply his or her knowledge to the set of symptoms to identify what is the problem. So the diagnosis by the doctor is about that particular patient giving out certain symptoms. Exactly in the same way, the OD consultant tries to identify the problems that are listed by the employees of the organization. Right? So that is the diagnostic step. Then the second part is the intervention. Once the doctor is sure about the diagnosis, what is the next step? Writing of a prescription. So we can say in the intervention part, in the doctor-patient relationship, there are A and B parts. The doctor writes the prescription. That is one part of the intervention. But the doctor cannot consume the medicines on behalf of the patient and the patient gets cured. Right? So this is just not possible. So this is a favorite joke between I and a friend of mine who is extremely, healthy, and he is into those, workouts and marathon runs and all of that every day. So whenever he sends a pic or something that, I've done 10 kilometers today and all. So my favorite pulling point is you must dedicate your day's work on the health front. You do the effort and I must reduce my weight. So that obviously is not possible. So the doctor does the first part, which is writing of the prescription, and the part B, that is consumption of those medicines or certain precautions or certain restrictions on the food, etc., has to be carried out by the patient. So the A part is prescription and the B part is the following of the prescription, taking of the medicines, taking of the precautions. So intervention has these two parts in the case of doctor-patient relationship. And then I will come to OD. And the third and final step in a simplistic model would be the maintenance. Once we have recovered from jaundice or typhoid or something, the doctor prescribes certain restrictions, particularly jaundice, for instance. For maybe a month or so, the doctor specifically tells you, tali hui cheezein mat khana, or ye mat karna, wo mat karna, etc. So those bahar ka khana mat khana, those kind of things are done to maintain what you have achieved. You have recovered from a disease, well and good, but let us not have a relapse of the thing. Therefore, the maintenance steps. For example, people who join a gym but lose, time doesn't suit or whatever. So they will reduce weight. But after 3 months, when they quit going to the gym regularly or going for their walks regularly, they start putting on weight again. So that is the maintenance part. So now link it to the organization. Do you need diagnosis? Obviously, yes. What are the problems in the company? That is the diagnosis part. But here, the coordination and collaboration between the OD consultant and the employees is a little more than the doctor patient. Everything has to be done in a coordinated, cooperative manner. So, what are the problems in the organization? That those have to be diagnosed. Then, a plan of action, which is the intervention. I would say plan of action is the A part of intervention, because you are not going to get any positive result if you are unable to implement the plan. डॉक्टर ने तो प्रेस्क्रिप्शन लिख के दे दिया, दवाई आपने खाई नहीं, तो कहां से ठीक हो जाओगे? Same way, there is intervention has two parts in OD also. One is creation of an action plan, and second part B is implementation of that action plan. Now the only difference is, in a doctor-patient relationship, A part is completely the doctor's responsibility. The patient doesn't create a prescription. And the B part is entirely the patient's responsibility. The doctor does not take the medicines. In the case of OD, both the parties are involved in both the steps, A and B part, that is, in equal manner, because it is a much bigger, as I said, it is not about one person, it is about an entire company having maybe 50,000 or 15 lakh employees. So the intervention part in OD has to be an action plan created jointly, and then the implementation also has to be done jointly by the employees of the organization primarily and the consultants. Once whatever you had planned has been achieved, like reduction of weight, then that has to be maintained. So the same three steps that happen in the case of a doctor patient are relevant in OD also. The only difference is in the second step, where in the doctor patient relationship, A part is entirely doctor's responsibility to write out the prescription. B part is entirely the patient's responsibility to carry it out. Here, all three steps are done jointly. And you will understand, even maintenance, for example, the OD consultant can't simply say that you have to do this to maintain it. He or she has to periodically review whether that is happening or not, exactly like a doctor does after, let us say, a fairly important or serious operation, a heart operation, for instance. Obviously, there is a tapering off. The patient initially will be probably called once after 3 days, then maybe a week, then maybe 15 days, then maybe a month, then 3 months, 6 months. Gradually, there is a tapering off. Exactly in the same manner, when we come to the details, you will see an OD consultant also has to taper off. That means the organization is now able to maintain whatever good has been achieved without the help of the consultant. Right? So, these three parts are fairly simple to understand. So this is an explanation. Just kindly go through and then we move on. Probably most of the things should be clear to you in these two paragraphs. The only thing is you should know the difference between a structured interview and an unstructured interview. Now, if any of you have any remembrance of the Hawthorne studies of Elton Mayo, if not, please try to go through, because that was a fundamental study which brought into focus that the human aspect in organizations, the human side of the enterprise is a very, very important aspect. And one of they conducted many experiments. I'll give you a reference, kindly jot down. This is an experiment which was carried out between 1924 and 1932 at a place called Hawthorne in US. And the company in which this was conducted was Western Electric Company. Western Electric Company, which had almost 20,000 workers at that point in time. And interestingly, the studies were not started to assess the human behavior part of it. The studies were typically industrial engineering studies, which started in 1924. But somewhere in 1927, the internal team was quite confused with the kind of readings or the results that they were getting. Since they were not able to explain those results, that is when they approached Harvard University for some inputs, and that is when Professor Elton Mayo led a team which included, later on some of those people became big names themselves. Elton Mayo is, of course, a pioneer, and Roethlisberger and some other names came up later. They were team members of Professor Elton Mayo. So Elton Mayo brought in the explanations, and all those explanations had more to do with human behavior than with the machines and other things. Right? That is why I was saying it is important for you to go back, because one of the experiments that was conducted, which is relevant here about structured and unstructured interviews, the team, when they went to talk to the workers about their machines, about their work, with a structured questionnaire, which means they had pre-created the questionnaires, what they will ask. When they went with that, expecting that they will be able to collect specific data, they were quite surprised that the workers were not willing to talk much. They were unable to gather the data that they were wanting to. Then they dropped the questionnaire method and started informally talking to them. They will just go onto the shop floor. Hey, John, how are you? How's your family? This, that, some general things. And as the conversation proceeded, they were able to realize that the workers are sharing much, much more than what they could have collected through the questionnaire. Now, this was a very interesting aspect and a hidden human behavioral aspect. What happens if one of you come to me with a question, right, and ask me, okay, what do you do? And you are recording it. I have some kind of a hidden fear that you have been appointed by the management and you are investigating what do I do, etc., etc. And you will give a report to the management and tomorrow I may lose my job. That is the kind of feeling I get when you come with a structured interview. But when you come to me just, hello, how are you? How was your day? Etc. etc. And the conversation goes on an unstructured manner. Somewhere down the line, I start revealing many more details about my work than even what you wanted to capture in the question. So this part of human behavior was noticed in the Hawthorne experiments. In one of the experiments, there were 4 major experiments and many minor ones. So it is important because that is where the roots of the importance of human behavior in running an organization was established. Right? So you can have structured interviews. Sorry, no one is stopping you. But it is found that for OD purposes, unstructured interviews sometimes give you the real feel of the problems that are happening. Right? So, unstructured interview, I thought there is a need for me to explain this part. Now, this you can just quickly read through. I have anything to explain. Okay. So, this is just a small example in the second para as to how you can solve a problem between sales and production by creating a small task force who will independently look into their issues, and it can be even formed with 2 salespeople and 2 production people. They form a team and solve the problem. This is also I have already explained. Just read through. The second para is about that maintenance, that organization should not slip back to the original situation. Now, these parts are what I have already explained, a little more detail on that. So I don't think we can discuss every speed, and it is not needed also. So some specific techniques we will briefly touch upon here, because these are actually going to be tackled in the other, your entire curriculum has been divided into 9 parts and 1 class for the review in the end. So these form 2 specific classes. What are those techniques that we use? So techniques, one for diagnosing the problem, and second is to bring about the changes. Those are what we are interested in. Unstructured interview I have explained already. Questionnaire survey I have explained already. You sometimes hold mini conferences or even a major conference to analyze what employees come up with. All these town halls and whatever terminology you give, basic idea is employees are giving their views on how the organization is running, and the higher management, with or without the help of an OD consultant, needs to solve those problems. Sorry. Similarly, you are all familiar with group discussion. Now, one interesting observation on human behavior, which I have personally seen, is there are some people who will part with a lot of organizational problems, even personal problems, to another person. They will confide in a one-on-one situation, which is a structured or an unstructured interview, one interviewer and one employee. They are very comfortable, but they will not speak out in the presence of others. Very talkative one-on-one, but very quiet in a group situation. This is the personality of some people. But exact contrast you find in some others. They are energized if a group discussion is happening. Some pent up issue may be there, which they are hesitant or diffident in bringing up in a one-on-one session. But when one colleague brings up a problem, this person immediately jumps in. Yeah. I have also faced this, and goes on to further elaborate the problem. So, individual interviews, structured or unstructured, as well as group discussions, if you have both, plus a questionnaire survey, typically anonymous, you are collecting the list of problems from various sources, and if they all indicate a trend, then you are more or less sure that your diagnosis is right. Okay. Typically, for any serious health issue, you will find that people do not go by one doctor's opinion. They always take a second opinion from another expert. And if the two doctors are saying the same thing independently, then the patient feels that yes, there is no other way, this is the problem. But if two doctors have a difference of view, then confusion begins, and then probably a third opinion is sought. So the same thing applies. After all, please understand, right in the beginning, I said we are talking of human behavior. Organization is all about human beings, right? So these will be taken up in detail in different chapters as per your curriculum. Now, this is for you to read. I will just take 1 or 2 minutes more on an important concept of appreciative inquiry, because that you have to understand. Now, these are the things that we will take up, the methods that I was talking about in different chapters. Your topic 2 has 1, 2, 3, and topic 3 has 4 to 7. Now, this is the one that you need to pay attention to, and then I will leave it to you to ask questions, right? Okay. Now, till now, what we have understood is the essential purpose of OD is to identify what is wrong in the organization, or even if not wrong, what might not carry the organization forward in the future, and therefore we need to take some action. And therefore we talk about diagnosis of problems. Now look at it from a very practical perspective. Let us say I am the OD consultant. I have come to your organization and I am talking to you about the problems that you have in the organization. Now, even if I establish a frank dialogue with you and you start listing the problems that your organization has, in your view, somewhere in your mind, a thought will come that if I keep on listing 20 and 30 and 40 problems, am I not in a way giving a clue? After all, I am also a manager of this company. I am a general manager of this company. So if I list so many problems, am I not a part of creating these problems? After all, it's a human mind, right? If I am telling you too many problems, so I am a part of this system. So there is likely to be some kind of hesitation in openly telling too many problems, because you think in your mind, it is not the OD consultant's way of looking at it, but you will think in your mind that the OD consultant will feel that I am a contributor to these problems, at least to some degree, because of which you will not give me the entire list of problems. Now if you don't tell the doctor all the symptoms that are happening, then how is the doctor supposed to write the prescription? Because he won't be able to identify the problem in its entirety. So the old method of pure doctor patient relationship, जाते ही हाँ भाई problem क्या है, instead of that it was found that if we start on a very positive note, for example, now contrast it with what I am going to say now. I come to your organization and start by saying, अरे बॉस आपकी कंपनी तो 25 साल से चल रही है, पता नहीं कितने कंपनी आए और खत्म हो गए आपके कॉम्पिटिटर्स, आप क्या क्या अच्छी चीज आपकी कंपनी में है. Now when I start on that positive note, then what happens? You are very excited and energized because I am asking, I am giving you credit कि आपने बहुत अच्छा मैनेज किया. तो you will give me very openly, अरे हमने ये किया, हमने वो किया, हमने वो किया. You are all excited about it. I keep on making my notes कि ये कंपनी में अच्छे काम हुए. Now, I being an experienced interviewer, I mean as an OD consultant, what will I do then? I will gradually start asking questions like, अच्छा देखिए अब हमें मिलके कुछ करना है, तो obviously आप मानोगे कंपनी को और आगे तो बढ़ाना ही है ना, तो कंपनी को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए आपको क्या लगता है हमें क्या चेंज लाना पड़ेगा. So the whole conversation is going in a very positive sense. But look at it this way, whatever changes you want to bring about in your organization, aren't they the current problems? आप क्यों चेंज करना चाहते हो? क्योंकि कोई चीज आपके हिसाब से ठीक नहीं है, तभी तो आप चेंज करना चाहते हो ना. तो appreciative inquiry is that methodology where you start with praise so that you establish a very positive relationship with employees. They start talking about their achievements, which everybody is very happy to. And as an experienced interviewer, you know gradually, और बताइए, और अच्छी चीजें बताइए, और अच्छी चीजें बताइए, सारा लिस्ट करने के बाद मैं बीच में कहीं बोलता हूँ, अच्छा अब ये बताओ मिल करके फिर क्या करें हम, आपने तो बड़ी अच्छी चीजें करी हुई हैं, और क्या अच्छी चीज हो सकती है. So the entire conversation goes from problem diagnosis to how we can make it better, how we can excel rather than just solving problems. So the current, why I wanted to introduce this concept is the current model of OD. When we start with inquiry process, we do not use problem identification, we use appreciative inquiry, in which the first part primarily focuses on the good things of the organization, and then gradually, indirectly, we bring you on to the problem diagnosis. So I think I will end at that point so that you have some time. I am free, I have no problem. You, if you have some questions to ask. Anybody? Any questions? Because the purpose of today's session was to give out the scope, first the definition and then the scope. What is OD all about? And how do we go about this process? The details obviously will follow. No questions is very dangerous. Have you understood everything or you have not understood anything? I can see Prabodh smiling. Any questions? Indrila, Harpreet, are you there?
Yes, we
Sir,
are
Harpreet
already
here.
there. Yeah.
Yes.
Sir.
Any questions?
Sir,
So, yeah,
in the
please, Harpreet.
yeah, Sumit sir, like in the starting, we discussed about the force field analysis. Na, you told.
Yes. Sorry, Harpreet, कट गया. Force field analysis, पूछो. Hi, are you able to hear me? Hello. Hello. अगर आपका ऑपोजिशन आपसे स्ट्रॉन्गर है, अगर आपका ऑपोजिट प्लेयर आपसे स्ट्रॉन्गर है, तो आपकी कोशिश होनी चाहिए, अगर आप इक्वल एक्सचेंज कर सकते हो, जैसे रुक, आपका रुक मैं मार दूं, पर मुझे पता है कि आप मेरे रुक को मार दोगे, तो भी मुझे ये करना चाहिए. क्यों करना चाहिए? क्योंकि आप बेटर प्लेयर हो, तो जो रुक का मैं फायदा उठा सकता हूं, आप उसी रुक का मेरे से ज्यादा फायदा उठा सकते हो. पर अगर ऑपोजिशन का प्लेयर वीकर है मेरे से, तो मुझे पता है कि उस रुक का मेरे पास अगर रहेगा, आपके पास भी रहेगा, मैं उसका ज्यादा फायदा उठा सकता हूं. ठीक उसी तरह जब भी आप कोई अच्छा आइडिया इंप्लीमेंट करना चाहते हैं, आपको पता है कि अच्छा आइडिया है, नो डाउट अबाउट दैट, पर अगर आपने वो बिना सोचे समझे इंप्लीमेंट कर दिया, कुछ लोगों को वो आइडिया समझ नहीं आएगी, इसलिए वो फॉलो नहीं करेंगे. कुछ लोग जान के आपके ऑपोजिट कैंप के हैं, इसलिए आपको अपोज करेंगे. तो आपको आइडिया कितना ही अच्छा हो, उसको इंप्लीमेंट करने से पहले आपको थोड़ा कैलकुलेशन करना चाहिए. जैसे आप देखते हो पॉलिटिक्स में क्या होता है, जो भी गवर्निंग पार्टी है, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो कभी भी गलती नहीं करेगी. डेफिनेटली कोई भी 100 काम करेगा, कुछ गलतियां होंगी, बट जब वो अच्छा काम भी करते हैं, अनफॉर्चुनेटली ऑपोजिशन उस काम को भी अड़ंगा लगाने की कोशिश करती है. तो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी आपको ये सोचना है कि अगर मैं ये आइडिया इंप्लीमेंट करता हूं, तो मेरे को सपोर्ट करने वाले कितने होंगे, जिसको बोलते हैं फैसिलिटेटिंग फोर्सेस. सपोर्टिंग फोर्सेस कौन सी होंगी, मुझे कहां से सपोर्ट मिलेगा, और दूसरा है कहां से मुझे ऑपोजिशन मिलेगा, कौन कौन इस आइडिया के अगेंस्ट जा सकते हैं. तो आइडिया तब इंप्लीमेंट हो पाएगा जब आपके सपोर्टिंग फोर्सेस थोड़े ज्यादा होंगे. तो आपकी उस बैटल में कोशिश ये होती है कि अपोजिंग फोर्सेस को कैसे कन्विंस किया जाए कि हमारी बात मान ले वो, और सपोर्टिंग फोर्सेस को कैसे बढ़ाया जाए ताकि वो इंप्लीमेंटेशन सक्सेसफुली हो सके. तो ये जो बैलेंस ऑफ फोर्सेस है, रेस्ट्रेनिंग फोर्सेस एक तरफ जो रुकावट डाल रही हैं, सपोर्टिंग फोर्सेस या फैसिलिटेटिंग फोर्सेस जो हमारे आइडिया को आगे बढ़ाएगी. दैट इज हाउ a good idea can be implemented better. मान लीजिए आपका बॉस ही आपसे खुश नहीं है, वो हर चीज जो आप आइडिया देते हो उसको काट देता है. वहां पे आप अच्छा आइडिया, आपको पता है अच्छा आइडिया है, आपके दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट वाले भी मान रहे हैं कि अच्छा आइडिया है, पर बॉस नहीं मान रहा. क्यों? क्योंकि बॉस को ये चिंता है कि अगर इसने मेरे जूनियर ने अच्छा आइडिया दे दिया तो मेरी कुर्सी हिल जाएगी. तो वो that boss will never support this idea because of a selfish reason. तो वहां पे आपकी आइडिया कितना ही अच्छा हो, वो नहीं चल पाएगा. तो आपको क्या करना होगा, आपको धीरे धीरे आइडिया को डिस्कस करके अपनी तरफ सपोर्ट लेना होगा. बॉस को आपको कन्विंस करना होगा ये दिखा के कि हाउ द बॉस माइट आल्सो गेन इफ दिस आइडिया इज इंप्लीमेंटेड, तब वो आपकी तरफ आएगा. The only way to motivate people is to show how it will benefit them. That is how you balance the forces, and supporting forces को थोड़ा बढ़ाना है, restraining forces को थोड़ा कम करना है, तब आपका आइडिया स्मूथली इंप्लीमेंट होगा.
Got it, sir.
The,
Got it. Sir, one thing more,
the
like just want to know, like this Elton Mayo structured and unstructured questionnaire which you told
जी,
that we need to study the complete experiment. That we should go through it once. In the like, will that carry a will that be helpful like in subsequent study of this OD?
ये
This Elton Mayo questionnaire.
ओडी में डायरेक्टली अगर आप आईएसटीडी के पेपर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखो तो शायद नहीं, बट आपको जो अपने
नहीं,
ऑर्गेनाइजेशन
मैं
में
फ्रॉम कॉर्पोरेट पॉइंट, यस यस सर,
हाँ
कॉर्पोरेट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू
हाँ
से पूछना चाहता
डेफिनेटली डेफिनेटली, बिकॉज आपको इसमें ये दिखेगा, जैसे इसके 4 प्रोमिनेंट एक्सपेरिमेंट्स थे। पहला था लाइटिंग एक्सपेरिमेंट्स, या उसको इल्यूमिनेशन एक्सपेरिमेंट्स भी बोलते हैं। सेकेंड वाज रेस्ट पॉजेस एक्सपेरिमेंट। थर्ड वाज अ जेंडर बेस्ड, इक्वली कॉम्पिटेंट विमेन एंड इक्वली कॉम्पिटेंट मेन, उनके परफॉर्मेंस में क्या डिफरेंसेस आई। और चौथा जो मैंने आपको बोला, इंटरव्यूइंग फेज बोलते थे उसको, या इंटरव्यूइंग पार्ट ऑफ द स्टडी। ये 4 मेजर स्टडी थे उसमें। उससे आपको ये फीलिंग, ये क्लैरिटी आ जाएगी कि ह्यूमन बिहेवियर का कैसा रोल रहता है और किस वजह से रहता है। कई बार आपको लगता है ना कि यार ये बंदा हमेशा ही मेरे को काटता है, हमेशा ही इसको क्या तकलीफ है, क्यों वो ऐसा कर रहा है, उसको एक्सप्लेन करने में तो आपको थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी बढ़ेगी। दैट इज व्हाई आई वाज सजेस्टिंग कि वो आप कर लेना, और खासकर स्ट्रक्चर्ड एंड अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड इंटरव्यू वाली बात तो ओडी में डायरेक्टली आपके काम आएगी। और इन अ वेरी वेरी वाइड सेंस, आफ्टर ऑल ओडी क्या है, हमें कुछ आइडियाज जनरेट करने हैं। किस चीज के लिए आइडिया जनरेट करने हैं, ताकि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आगे बढ़े। ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आगे बढ़ाने के जो आइडियाज आएंगे, जैसा मैंने कहा था कि टेक्नोलॉजी भी आपको अगर नहीं खरीदनी है तो कौन डिसाइड करेगा कि कौन सी टेक्नोलॉजी खरीदनी है? कोई ना कोई ह्यूमन बीइंग है। अगर कोई बंदा, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आप एक बहुत अच्छा टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रपोजल लेके गए हो, लेट मी गिव यू अ कॉन्क्रीट एग्जाम्पल, उससे शायद और क्लियर हो जाएगी। एस्कॉट्स में रहते अबाउट 100 जीईटीज और अबाउट 20 मैनेजमेंट ट्रेनीज हमारा हर साल हम लेते थे। तो 1 full year all of them were reporting to me administratively, and they had a functional boss in their own department। ठीक है, तो मेरी उनसे इक्वेशन इसलिए ज्यादा बन जाती थी क्योंकि कैंपस रिक्रूटमेंट में भी मैं ही जाता था। तो when they used to come to फरीदाबाद to join, I was the familiar face, क्योंकि ज्वाइनिंग तो एचआर में होती थी। कैंपस रिक्रूटमेंट के लिए एक एचआर का, एक मार्केटिंग का और एक प्रोडक्शन या आरएनडी से जो टेक्निकल बंदा, हम 3 की टीम होती थी नॉर्मली। तो एचआर डिपार्टमेंट में जब ज्वाइन करने आते थे तो मेरी फेमिलियरिटी होती ही थी, और उनको ये भी पता है कि 1 साल तक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिवली रिपोर्टिंग हमारी यहाँ रहेगी। तो उसमें से एक बहुत ब्राइट इंजीनियर था, तो एक दिन वो अपने प्रॉब्लम लेके मेरे पास आते रहते थे। देयर यंगस्टर्स, फ्रेशर्स थे, प्रॉब्लम थी, कोई लड़की है, किसी ने बोल दिया कुछ फैक्ट्री सेटअप में, तो these things were very common. So this boy, youngster, very bright engineer from an IIT, मेरे को बहुत पसंद था वो, वेरी गुड। तो एक दिन मेरे पास आया और मेरे को कहता है, सर, मतलब I was quite shocked. The first sentence he says, very agitated, sir, मेरा बॉस चोर है। मेरा बॉस चोर है, this is the statement he starts when I know he's a very nice guy। अच्छा, तो मैंने उसको बिठाया, चाय वाय मंगाई, ऑल दैट, जनरली वही जो अप्रिशिएटिव इंक्वायरी वाली बात है कि यार तुम तो हमेशा इतने खुश मिजाज आते हो, सब कुछ है बढ़िया, ये क्या, तो क्या हो गया बताओ, आई एम देयर टू सॉल्व योर प्रॉब्लम। तो धीरे धीरे बातचीत में क्या पता लगा, he was placed in materials department। ठीक है, materials management। अब materials management department में obviously vendor की सिलेक्शन करनी होती थी। तो उसने जो डिटेल मेरे को बताई कि सर, मैंने ये पूरी रिसर्च करके, क्वालिटी टेस्टिंग करवा के, मैंने एक नया वेंडर ढूंढा जिसको बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है, सब कुछ है, और ये कोई छोटा कंपोनेंट था, जो उस टाइम पे इट वाज सम काइंड ऑफ अ नट बोल्ट, यू कैन से फास्टनर्स जिसको बोलते हैं टेक्निकली। तो वो एक नट बोल्ट का सेट होता था जो हमारे मशीन्स में लगते थे। तो उसका उसने, और काफी क्वांटिटी में चाहिए होता था उस पर्टिकुलर साइज का, तो उसने सारा करवा के सब कुछ करके एक नया वेंडर ढूंढा who was willing to give it in those days for some 2 rupees 75 paisa per piece, जबकि जो करंट वेंडर था जो दे रहा था उसका रेट कोई 3 रुपीस का था, और ये हजारों की क्वांटिटी में चाहिए होती थी। तो हर पीस पे आपने अगर 25 पैसे बचा लिए, राइट, तो आपका हर 4 पीस पे आपका 1 रुपया बच रहा है। और अगर 40,000 पीस आपको चाहिए महीने में, तो आपका सीधा 10,000 बच रहा है। एंड आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ लेट 80s। तो ये सिचुएशन थी। तो मेरे को उसने कहा कि मैंने ये सारा करके सब कुछ प्रूव करके बॉस को दिखा के करके दिया, पर सर इस साल का जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है फिर से वही 3 रुपए वाले को दे दिया गया, तो ये तो फिर बॉस पैसे खाता होगा। तो मैंने उसको समझाया, मैंने कहा बॉस, मैं आपके बॉस को जानता हूं, आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि आप गलत हो बिल्कुल, बट जहां तक मेरी इंप्रेशन है, आपके बॉस भी काफी टाइम से हैं और मैं आई नो हिम फेयरली वेल। मुझे नहीं लगता कि ही हैज दिस काइंड ऑफ अ नेगेटिव बेंट ऑफ माइंड कि वो कंपनी से पैसे खाएगा, ऐसा मुझे लगता नहीं है। पर आई हैव नो रीजन टू डिसबिलीव यू आल्सो। तो मेरा ये सजेशन है तुम्हारे को थोड़ा सा कि तुम एकदम से कंक्लूजन पे मत पहुंचो, थोड़ा इन्वेस्टिगेट करो जो करंट वेंडर है वो क्या है, किसके लिंक हैं, क्या है नहीं है, थोड़ा इसके बारे में पता करो। जो दूसरे जो कलीग्स हैं तुम्हारे पुराने, कि ये कब से है, किसको जानता है, क्या है नहीं है। एंड उससे ही वाज एन इंटेलिजेंट गाय, उसको तो उसने बोला ठीक है। तो मैंने बड़े प्यार से उसको हैंडल किया। मैंने कहा इतना गुस्सा एकदम से मत करो, थोड़ा इन्वेस्टिगेट करके फिर बात करते हैं महीने 2 महीने में, और जब भी तुम्हें फील हो, यू आर मोस्ट वेलकम टू वॉक इन एनी टाइम। 2 महीने बाद मेरे को आके, सर आप सही कह रहे थे, सर आप सही कह रहे थे। मैंने कहा अब क्या हो गया? तो तुम बिल्कुल बदल गए। कहता है सर वो आपने सही गाइड किया था मेरे को, मैंने सारा डिटेल पता किया। वो जो वेंडर है वो तो डिवीजन हेड, मतलब जो वाइस प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द डिवीजन, बिजनेस हेड, उसका रिलेटिव है कोई। तो इसका मैनेजर इज 4th लेवल, डिवीजन हेड, उसके बाद वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, उसके बाद जीएम, उसके बाद मैनेजर। तो ये बहुत ही जूनियर है टू से नो। और वो ये जीईटी को भी नहीं बता सकता कि भाई इस मजबूरी से मैं नहीं ले रहा हूँ, इसी से लेना पड़ रहा है। तो दीज आर द काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स दैट हैपन। तो ये जो उसने डिराइव किया अपने तरीके से, ऑन द फेस ऑफ इट दिस जीईटी वाज राइट कि भैया मैंने इतना अच्छा रिसर्च कर दिया पर मेरी बात एक्सेप्ट नहीं हुई। वो क्या देख रहा था कि भाई ये अच्छा आइडिया है, कंपनी के पैसे बच रहे हैं, फटाफट इट शुड बी एक्सेप्टेड। ही वाज राइट इन हिज ओन वे, बट उसको एक्सपोजर नहीं था। द बॉस कुड नॉट टेल अ जूनियर कि भाई ये मजबूरी है मेरे ऊपर। तो सबऑर्डिनेट वाज इमेजिनिंग कि बॉस गड़बड़ करता है, जबकि बॉस इज अंडर प्रेशर फ्रॉम हिज सुपर बॉस। So these are the kind of situations that emerge in organizations. बंदा क्या चीज क्यों कर रहा है या क्यों कह रहा है, उसके पीछे सपोर्टिंग फोर्सेस क्या हैं और उसके पीछे रेस्ट्रेनिंग फोर्सेस क्या हैं, ये समझने में हमें हेल्प होता है फ्रॉम दिस। दैट वाज द आइडिया। आई होप some clarity comes because of this. क्यों हरप्रीत? Is it all right? Explanation समझ आई? Have I been able to explain it properly?
So, I have a question, Andrula, this side.
Please.
Yes. So, in your last slide, you have mentioned about this managerial grid.
Hmm.
So could you please explain a little bit about this?
Okay.
Although I'm aware about the concept, like not
Yes.
thoroughly, but a little bit of this part. So
Good. Good.
yeah.
So I will touch upon it briefly only because, as I said, 1, 2, and 3 are to be discussed in topic 2, and 4 to 7 are to be discussed in topic 3. That is how your curriculum is made out. But
Okay.
managerial grade, since you have asked a question, I'll briefly explain right now. Sorry. This is one of the leadership models that emerged out of 2 basic detailed studies carried out in 2 different universities of the US. One was the Michigan State Studies, and the other one was the, which one was that? There's another university. One was Michigan State Studies, and the other was another university. I'll tell you which one. Those 2 studies were the fundamentals of extremely detailed aspects of leadership, based on which Ohio State Studies. Now I was forgetting Ohio. Ohio State Studies and Michigan State Studies are 2 fundamental researches. Out of the findings of those 2 studies, many leadership models came up.
Okay.
So one of the leadership model that came up was the managerial grade, which was created by 2 people, Robert Blake, BLAKE, not Black, Robert Blake, BLAKE, and his associate, Jane Moulton, a lady, Jane Moulton, MOUTON. तो रॉबर्ट ब्लेक एंड जेन माउटन ने क्या करा कि लीडरशिप के 2 डायमेंशंस उन्होंने लिए, जो कि ओहायो एंड मिशिगन स्टेट स्टडीज में निकले थे. सो दे क्रिएटेड अ मॉडल जिसमें उन्होंने एक्स एक्सिस पे प्लॉट किया कंसर्न फॉर टास्क, राइट, एंड वाई एक्सिस पे उन्होंने प्लॉट किया concern for people, because task and people were the 2 key dimensions that were coming out from Ohio and Michigan state studies. फिर उन्होंने क्या करा, उन्होंने एक स्केल बनाया from 1 to 9. As you know very well, human behavior में कोई 0 तो होता नहीं है. I can't say that I am 100% rational or I am 100% emotional. We are always a mix, So 0 focus on task नहीं हो सकता और 100 focus on task भी नहीं हो सकता. So they created a scale of 1 to 9 instead of 0 to 9, where 1 was the least focus, 9 was the highest focus. So on the x-axis they plotted कि कोई भी बंदा है उसका टास्क के ऊपर कितना ध्यान है. 1 है, 2 है, 3 है, 4 है, exactly like 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter kind of thing. The more, the higher. That means that person is more focused on the task. Similarly, they created a 1 to 9 scale on people, concern for people. Okay, where again, if you are not focused much on your team, people who work for you, then you will be rated as a 1 manager on the people front, on the concern for people. And if you are extremely concerned about the people who work with you, then you will be given a 9 mark, maximum concern for people. Yeah, ye 2 dimension pe they worked it out. Now let me give you 2 quick examples before I go into the more of technicalities. So the first thing is, there is a story of a mining superintendent. Okay. So mining superintendent, as you know, of different metals are extracted, maybe iron ore or whatever ore, and then it goes to the factories where the processing happens and the steel making or whatever will happen from the iron ore. So this mining superintendent was taking a round of the mines when his personal assistant from the office runs to him, locates him, and that reports that one of the drivers, that means the iron ore is being carried from the factory, from the mine to the factory. So this assistant comes and tells the boss, the mining superintendent, that John's truck has met with an accident. That was one of the trucks which was carrying the ore to the factory. This is the information he gives him. Now, immediate response of the boss is, oh, then there would be a shortage of ore in the factory. Please ensure that one more truck is immediately dispatched. Now, this man does not even spare a thought as to what happened to John, the driver of the truck. Right? So this kind of a person will be rated 9 on task, very high on task. He's very concerned about the task, but he will be rated very low on the people front. He will be 1 on concern for people. Now, can you say he's a good boss?
That depends.
Right? So normally you cannot classify him as a good boss, though he is very task oriented. On the other side now, on the people side, I don't know if you remember when you were kids, probably you would have seen, there used to be a car called Esteem by Maruti, right? So the Esteem car, when it came up in the market, they had an ad on TV where this father is very happy. He has bought an Esteem car and he reaches home. And his little kid, 7-8-year-old kid, runs out, you know. So obviously that age kids will be very enthused about a new car coming in and all of that. So he runs down, meets up with the father, and as he runs down, the father also remembers that today was his result day. So the father asks him, how much in maths? How much in maths? So the boy is not done very well, so he says some 38 or something. And the father's reaction is, oh, there's always for a time. Right? So now, between the father and the son, and that too son of the age of 8 or 10, obviously the father is the leader and the son is the junior or subordinate or associate, whatever you would like to call it. So in this situation, what happens? The task was doing well in the exam, which the father is not bothered about, but he is very concerned about the little child's happiness. Now you can very well argue that the child should not be scolded, this, that, and the other. But you usually, what is the message you are giving? That even if you have failed, I will treat you to ice cream or something, or we'll go out for dinner and enjoy. That means you are very concerned with the person. But what about the task? So this leader also cannot be rated as a very high level of leader. This is how. So what they did was, because of this 9-9 on both sides, just as a little while back we were talking of the chessboard which has 8 into 8, 64 squares. On the map, on the grid which I'll show you when we come to the topic, there would be 81 squares. So ideal situation will be 9-9. You are 9 concerned about the task and 9 concerned about the people. Maximum concern for task and maximum concern for people. That would be an ideal leader. Of course, it is very difficult to achieve that. So the managerial grid tries to fit you into one of those 81 boxes. Where do you fit in? And then they will, through questionnaires and other things, they will determine your current state of leadership. Similarly, I have leadership questionnaires where I can tell you, if you do it, I can tell you how much your concern for task is and how much your concern for people is. And then, depending on the role you are in, my job as a consultant is to help you to achieve as near 9-9 as possible.
Okay.
So that is the concept that we manage. And a similar model is also the situational leadership theory of Hershey Blanchard. SLT बोलते हैं for short, and lot of Fortune 500 companies have implemented this. Now, of course, it's almost similar to managerial grid with some additions to it. So it's a further improvement, you can say. But now, of course, Hershey and Blanchard have separated out. They run their own setups. And this one of them writes, 1 minute. Now they are so now they are so anti each other that one of them has written a book called 1 Minute Manager, and the other came up with the other 59 minutes. So SL2 has come, SL3 has come. So basically, these leadership models essentially try to tell you where are you currently, what is your leadership style currently, and then where do you want to reach. So the gap is identified, and then you are helped to reach that level. That is the basic essence of managerial grid. And of course, situational leadership theory is linked to it, but a later model and a little more comprehensive, where they have also traced what kind of followers have to be dealt with in what kind of ways. Yeah, Ashish.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Indrila, have I been able to explain managerial grid in short?
Yes.
But this will become very clear when we come to topic 3, because I will show you a complete diagram.
True. Okay.
Yeah. Ashish, please.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. So it's very informative class, and first class, a lot of concepts have been cleared. Thank you. Especially, I'm working with Deloitte in the L&D team, and VUCA is one of the principles that definitely we talk about in the unprecedented time that we all are in right now.
Absolutely.
Now, my question to you is, with the new change in the new normal that we have gone virtual, I believe in 2 Ds and 2 Ts. By that, I mean data, digital, technology, and talent. According to you, what can be the potential changes in the OD as an OD consultant that one needs to be very mindful about, since now the whole organizational strategies, the talent framework, the performance review will change due to COVID-19?
Right.
That's my question.
Excellent question. But I don't think I should give an off-the-cuff answer, because unless you apply your mind, and I know a little bit more, I would definitely be willing to give the answer. If you can just drop in a mail to me giving these 4 dimensions that you are talking about and your exact query, then I will be able to respond back. Because unless I analyze what all possibilities might emerge on the issues that you raise, I think it will be jumping to a conclusion too fast. It is, consultants typically have to apply their mind on something and then only come up with an answer. Maybe tomorrow, day after, I can answer, but I need to have some kind of basic information as to what is your thought process now and where it can lead to. But one thing is clear, that one thing I can definitely say, that in VUCA world, earlier what used to happen, this is a general statement I'm making, not specific to your query, because I have to understand your query and a little more about it. So one thing which will apply, which is very, very clear, is that when we were students, for instance, we were always given extrapolation. Last 10 years data says this, market has moved like this, so the next 5 years are likely to be this. The predictions were made by extrapolation. But with VUCA, for example, even till the late 90s, this word benchmarking was very, very prominent in jargon, which meant who are the people who are doing better than us. We study their models and we would like to match up with them. So that led to what was typically called best practices, industry best practices, global best practices, countrywide best practices, and we were trying to catch up. But in the VUCA world, what has typically happened is, because of the disruptions, and COVID is a huge disruption the world over, therefore the traditional models of, because last 10 years such a things happened and therefore the next 5 years this will happen, certainly doesn't hold good. So my simple example would be, for example, take the case of India-Pakistan relationship. Now, if Pakistan plans to attack India, they are never going to tell you as to which date, at which point, in what way will they attack you. So what does the Indian armed forces do? Can you just sit idle and say when Pakistan will attack, then we will think of a response? No. So what Indian armed forces has to do is list down all possible actions that Pakistan can take. So they can do A, they can do B, they can do C, they can do D. All possible things that they may possibly do, they will list out. And then they will think, in case they do A, then are we ready with response to A? If they do B, are we ready to do, are we ready with our response to B? If they do C, are we ready with our response to C? That particular process is now being called scenario analysis. So you try to conjure up various scenarios, the 4 things that you mentioned, what could possibly happen. And no single brain will be able to list out everything. You have to use questionnaires or these interactive meets to identify what all may go wrong or right. And then comes the question of how do we prepare for that. So the disruption is here to stay. As typical examples you always hear of, I mean, who could imagine even 10 years back that a company like Airbnb or Ohio, who have zero properties in their possession, will be the highest biggest business in hotel? No property. The car aggregators, these Ola, Uber kinds, this is where you have to project what might happen in the future. And this in a VUCA world will be, think of what all can be volatile, what all can be uncertain. List out. So this is not a one sentence or a one-off kind of a solution that you can find. We have to analyze what are the V's, what are the U's, what are the C's, and what are the A's in the next 2 years. And then we can only come down to strategizing that how we should prepare ourselves. So this is the model that I can offer, but getting into specifics will need much more of data. And since you are in Deloitte, I'm sure you understand how relevant data is. And sometimes these models may be so complex that human mind may not be able to do it. You may have to use AI and ML for projections. Does it make sense?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
So that is what I can say offhand. So this is a model I can give you, but actual data, unless it comes in and with analysis, solutions are not that easy to define. Any other questions? Hi Anandita, can you hear me? Some issue there, it seems.
Hear me?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. The question is like the pandemic COVID-19 situation is a classical example of VUCA. Now, VUCA, if I have to see as a whole, so will it have one of the categories like volatility, uncertainty, whatever complexity, ambiguity? Are all these components are integral to this pandemic situation, or is it one of these situations? and what are the implications in terms of the effect it will have in organization? Is it a catalyst to some more change management or future long-term organization development?
Yes, and you see, as a safety measure, it is quite possible that one of these four or two of these four may prove to be more important in the COVID situation. That is possible. But as a consultant, I would never suggest that right in the beginning, you underestimate any of these factors. Your attempt should be to analyze all four, gather as much data, talk to as many colleagues, may not be about solutions to begin with, just about what do you think is going to be further uncertain, so no single person will ever be able to capture all the things that might be uncertain or all the things that might be ambiguous.
Yeah, and
So
it will also depend upon the type of the organization also, that one or more than one of the component may apply.
Most certainly. Just to give you a simple example, this kind of an online class, you have attended my regular classes, you are attending my online class. Now, this has been possible because of the nature of our interaction. But imagine a manufacturing unit where a car is being manufactured. Now, how do you do it online? So if on the assembly line, all the operators are not there, and as on date, the kind of spacing that is needed of 6 feet or something, that's just, you have to change the entire thing. So in their case, the problems will be completely different. Probably the uncertainty is not that much in terms of the car model is designed, the processes are all in place, everything. But in their case, complexity will be how to spread out, their assembly line. So therefore, definitely every business will have its own nuances. In one of these factors may have a major role to play as compared to the others. But what I am trying to say is, never neglect anything to begin with. Never drop out anything to begin with. Gradually,
assess all the four factors. So we have to assess all the four factors.
Assess all of them, and over a period of time, you can take an educated, considered opinion that no, this doesn't seem to be affecting us that badly. So we may have to focus on B a little more, C a little more.
Right.
But that should be a subsequent derivation, not right now. Yeah. Thank you. Any other?